It's time for EdTech Mondays, brought to you by Mastercard Foundation and CC Hub.
This month on EdTech Mondays Nigeria, we have explored the theme Powering Learning Everywhere, Partnerships that Scale EdTech Adoption. We began by examining the policy and financing structures that support digital learning in Nigeria. We then explored the critical role of public-private partnerships, highlighting how collaboration between government, institutions, private organizations, and innovators can accelerate access to education technology. But this brings us to a critical question. How do we move from short-term interventions to long-term, measurable, and sustainable impact? In this last episode, we anchor on the sustainability of learning access initiatives. We explore how NGOs, corporate foundations, and EdTech innovators can work together with public institutions to ensure that digital learning interventions are not just temporary projects, but lasting solutions embedded within the education system. Welcome back to EdTech Mondays Nigeria. EdTech Mondays Nigeria is a platform for having critical conversations about leveraging technology for teaching and learning. My name is Missy Madu, Managing Partner at CC Hub, and I will be your host for today as we conclude our March theme. Today's conversation explores how corporate social responsibility initiatives, NGOs, and EdTech innovators are expanding learning access and what it takes to transition from isolated interventions to sustainable systems-aligned impact. By the end of this discussion, we hope to highlight practical ways for stronger cross-sector collaboration and scalable partnership models that can expand digital learning across Nigeria. I still have my guests from last week's conversation in the studio. Please welcome again Ms. Tonya Udimo, Head of Oando Foundation. You're welcome.
Thank you.
And Abdul Bature, Founder and CEO of Schooler. Hello, Abdul. You're welcome again.
Thank you very much, Nisi. I'm excited to be back here.
Thank you. So, on the last episode, we had very, very interesting conversations about, how the Oando Foundation decides on what learning apps focuses on, how you determine where to intervene, and how you also work very closely with government and also your call to other private sector organizations to partner with government. Now, today we're going to be talking a bit more around measuring impact, the outcomes, what do those things look like to you, and what key things do you need to take into consideration when thinking about sustainability? You touched on it a little bit in our last week's episode, and this is an opportunity for us to dig a bit deeper into it. As Nigeria moves towards a coordinated national vision for digital learning, the federal government has developed the country's first ever National EdTech Strategy, an initiative jointly led by the Federal Ministry of Education and the Federal Ministry of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy, with support from partners like the Mastercard Foundation and the World Bank Group. The National EdTech Strategy establishes an integrated approach to digital transformation in education, linking infrastructure, interoperable data systems, digital competency, sustainable financing and governance, and the safe use of artificial intelligence. As part of this process, the National EdTech Strategy feedback platform has been launched to gather insights from various ecosystem stakeholders, from educators, EdTech innovators, and school leaders. We want your voice to be part of this national roadmap, especially from those of you in classrooms, leading schools, building solutions, or supporting learner outcomes. Today, we are inviting you to head to the platform on edutech.education.gov.ng/strategy-hub. I'll take it again, edutech.education.gov.ng/strategy-hub, or send link LINK to 0703-165-0809 to get the link and share your feedback, perspectives on the components of the National EdTech Strategy. So I'll start with you. In terms of measurable outcomes for the programs that you implement, what does that look like? How often do you measure? What does it look like? And how do you learn based on that impact? How does it refine subsequently?
Oando Foundation is a learning organization, and I don't say this casually. Because we're not core education specialists, we always look out for best practices. We look out for research that's ongoing in the field that we work. We look out for evidence-based methodologies that are working in line with our core focus. But what I also would like to say is the impact of education can be seen. So for a child who you started intervening when the child was in primary 2, couldn't read, couldn't write, you equip the teachers, you provide the resources, you do the initial baseline assessment, you see the levels, the skill levels of this child, say for literacy, their ability, their fluency, their comprehension, you see all of that, and then you start your intervention. And they move to grade 3, or primary 3 as we call it, and you see improvement. So I'll use the Lenovate Flip, for example. We had about 34% increase in number of children who were demonstrating improved literacy. Paragraph ability to read full paragraphs. We had reduction, for example, about 16% reduction in non-attempt at numeracy. So you had some children who you set numeracy questions before them and they can't even attempt it because they don't know what's in front of them. That reduced by 16%. So for us, I also would like to say beyond the numbers, it's can I see actually, when I interact with a child, can I tell that the child's learning performance has improved by interaction? And then transition levels. Yes, I know that we have a fail-forward system where, especially in the public school system, where every child needs to move from one grade level to another, whether they've mastered the competencies of the previous level or not. But it's also important to step back to see how many of them have transited with the skills required, and how many of them, beyond just transiting, have now moved on to secondary interventions at the primary level, have now moved on to secondary schools, and how well are they performing at that level. And so yes, we have an M&E framework that helps us track the various indicators that we've set. But more than the indicators, I tell people the humans, education is human development. So it's easy to tell if this improvement is actually happening or not by interaction, as well as periodic assessments that we carry out to see performance improvement. I'll use another example. One of our scholarship program at the foundation. There was this young child in Katsina State who when he started with us, it was in primary school, of course, from an indigent background. The parents already were thinking when he's done with primary school, just he has to do something to support the family. And then, but very brilliant chap. We took him on, he got on the scholarship and then went through secondary school, got into Bayero University, continued all through performing excellently. And just late last year, graduated with a 4.4, just missed the mark of a first class. And I know what happens in such instances. That young guy, now empowered, Mustafa is his name, will go back and become a source of encouragement, mentorship to others within the village where he comes from, and then supporting his immediate family. Economically, there will be improvement. He studied civil engineering. So even within the organization, we're also thinking what opportunities can we create for him. So you see, education is about human development. Yes, it's good to track and measure, but let the individuals you're supporting be the true marker of how successful your interventions have been.
Thank you so much for sharing that today. I think that's a really, really interesting story and paints the cycle that education creates and how it leads to the productivity that we know it can deliver for us as a community, as a society, as an economy. And I think there's something that you've highlighted there, which I'd just like to make that connection because you mentioned this in the last episode, is that with education is human capital development, and at the end of the day, these are the skilled talent that organizations will hire or who go on to start businesses that provide services to our organizations. And for a private foundation such as the Oando Foundation, this story you've told and how you measure those outcomes basically paints that picture for why your foundation has decided to focus on education, but how you measure that return on investment that you're putting in. And thank you for highlighting that. And just before I come to you, Abdul, just something else to that, because you talked about your strategy as an organization before this new one you're currently implementing, which is to innovate, and the digital learning or digital component is an important component here. To what extent, if at all, does this digital learning aspect play a role in measurable outcomes? Even why did you decide to prioritize digital learning in your unit?
I would say that digital learning is not a standalone. In the old strategy, in the Adopt to School strategy, it was. So we had digital literacy as a standalone, and the vehicle for implementing that was the setup of the digital literacy centers in the schools. We've adopted training of the teachers and ensuring software. We provide software that helps teachers deliver the curriculum, but in a way that is practical and the children find interesting and can understand. That was the strategy at the time. But now what we've done is integrate or infuse digital technology into the various projects that we execute. So I'll use, for example, the Learnovate Fleet, the pilot that we did with TAL. So I'm sure most people in the education space already know Teaching at the Right Level, TAL. At the time, they had successfully implemented a remedial program in Adamawa State, but then they were looking for cost-effective ways, because one of the reasons why the government runs away from partner programs or development partner programs is the cost. Absolutely. They just feel this thing is beyond us, we can't sustain it. And so TAL was looking to pilot low-cost digital technology for monitoring, for assessment, and teacher support. Okay. And so our funding to them was to support that process low cost, using digital. Before it was manual, lots of paper, and you know what comes with paperwork, errors here and there, but this was real time, able to access, able to monitor, able to support teachers, the school support officers going for their routine checks, using real data that they've been able to gather, and then taking that up to the local government level for decision making. It was just integrating or infusing digital technology, not so much in the classroom activity per se, but as a teacher support mechanism and a way of strengthening output for decision making.
Thank you so much. I think that's a very interesting thing you've highlighted, which is, and it's important we paint this picture, because a lot of times when people hear digital learning, they think it's, okay, maybe it's learning games or it's just digital literacy skills, but you've really highlighted, from your programs and as a foundation, how you integrate digital learning across board. And in this situation, it's strengthening teacher support, but also strengthening the process of gathering the data that helps, tell us to what extent the program is making an impact.
Yeah.
What we need to learn.
Also, to add that we have a STEM education program. Because we support public schools, it's important to ensure that whatever technology you're introducing is low cost. Otherwise, it will not be sustained. So even in the STEM education that we're currently running in Rivers State, the resources, the training of the teachers, but more importantly, the resources that help the children to learn, so we call it design thinking initiative for the children, trying to teach them about design thinking, but using low-cost materials, and infusing a bit of technology that helps to power the system. So my advice again to, I know you haven't asked for an advice, but I think I'll just give it since there's an innovator in the room. Always be mindful that solutions that you develop for private schools or high-end mid-income earners, whilst it may be fantastic to have it deployed in public schools, sustainability may be a challenge. And what's the beauty of having a fantastic pilot that cannot be continued? So as you design, always have that at the back of your mind. It has to be effective, but it has to be low cost for it to be properly integrated. And also look out for organizations like ours, see the kind of programs we run, and think of how your technology can better help us get the results that we're seeking. Is always easier to have those conversations from that background than just bringing your solution and saying, this is what we have, work with us to deliver it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for mentioning that here, because my question to Abdul was going to be, we're talking about cost. So a lot of things that we've, learned even as an organization, working a lot within the EdTech ecosystem in Nigeria, but then also through the National Foundation EdTech Fellowship Program supporting innovators such as Abdul, is the first things first is that a lot of partners really do not know that we have local EdTech solutions that can work. And no matter how we look at it, our local EdTech solutions are a lot more affordable than foreign, right? But there's still that element of local EdTech organizations thinking critically about affordability and sustainability of the solutions, especially when we're thinking about scale. And so, Abdul, this brings me to a question for you, right? You are providing, really brilliant EdTech solution that enables us improve teacher pedagogical, skills as well as teacher content knowledge essentially across. What are the key things that you think needs to be in place when it has to do with scaling your solution, especially in public schools? And what is your response to this topic on cost and affordability for delivering the solution, especially within the public education system?
Thank you very much, Nisi. And thank you for the advice. Great advice. We hear it every day. But just like Nisi has said, right, we are running a business and we may be thinking, our, what is it called? Costs. But we've been able to think in the direction of, what our users or who pays us, our client, is thinking. Low cost for us means we can build platforms that work offline first. You may be able to generate content with the internet, but it should continue to work even when there is no internet. Because I've seen also firsthand supporting schools. When I went to one of the schools very far, you need to take a bike, you drop your car and take a bike and go there. The network might be there, is not as efficient as you'd want it to be. And one of the teachers had a smartphone before the tabs that we even gave them. It's still in the carton. We sent him an alert to get data, and he couldn't even check and know that this was an alert because he's used to using a feature phone. So when building, since when we launched, when we build things for teachers, we don't build a mobile app. We know that the devices that they have, they struggle with memory. So we built a web app. Apart from building a web app, you have the constraint of internet. We spoke about zero rating data, for which government can get for the whole of their teachers if they try working with the telcos. But that again may not be enough. You need to make sure that it works offline first. If it works offline first, how about teachers that don't have access to a device and those others that don't want to share? So we've been lucky to work with some smart schools, the UBEC smart schools in Nasarawa State, and I think some in Kano, where they have a lab that helps teachers to just come in and generate and maybe learn. These are good initiatives, putting some infrastructure in place, computers and even internet that they can actually create content or learn. But some of the challenges we've seen is one of the schools I went, the solar panels, that were on top of the roof that are supposed to be meant for learning, nothing exists. The owners have taken it. And these are the challenges we keep seeing and want to encourage ourselves, like you've said, we speak to the team to make sure that we build tools that are offline first, really, really offline first, that teachers can continue to use even while they're not in school.
Thanks a lot, Abdul. And I'm going to ask you a follow-on question. Tonya just mentioned for edtech innovators and startups such as yourself who want to work with foundations such as this, you need to first off look at programs that they have and see how your solution can, integrate into it or further help them deliver even more results. What would be your own thoughts on how private foundations such as the Oando Foundation or other NGOs can work closely with edtech innovators to be able to deliver value, to be able to deliver improved learning outcomes to our children at scale?
So I would say stakeholder engagement or these co-creation processes that we've seen with the UBEC Digital Resource Center, where they do an open call innovators like myself to be in the room to better understand what they have seen, because they have more data than we do. The Oando is a bigger company. We tend to just listen to exactly what the stakeholder that we're looking at is telling us, and we build. I'm so excited how I'm on this session. I've learned a lot about the work that Oando Foundation is doing, and I would love for more stakeholder engagements or co-creation processes sessions where founders like myself are in the room and all their frameworks and strategies are laid out, and we get to even share who takes what, and I think we're going to see a lot of progress.
Thank you for that, Abdul. So basically, two things I would reiterate from what you said is the number of edtech innovators in Nigeria who are building really brilliant solutions, who definitely want to partner and work with various stakeholders within the ecosystem, especially private sector organizations, NGOs, foundations. And the starting point is saying, bring us all together. Let's understand what you're building, learn about what we're building, and then we'll be able to figure out how best to align our solutions with what it is that you have. So thank you for sharing that. Last question to both of you. Tonya, this question will be around sustainability, and you mentioned it last bit. What are the key things when it has to do with sustainability? And I know you mentioned it's, a little bit sustainability of your programs, of your intervention, working with government. What are the key elements that you pay attention to that would also be helpful for other private, foundations who are looking to partner similar to what the Oando Foundation is doing with them?
I think the first would be commonality of interest, understanding the individual roles and how far you're willing to go. So on our side as a private foundation or as a corporate foundation, we are not the owners of the schools. Government is. And so whatever work we do or whatever support we provide is complementary. And so finding government partners that are already demonstrating a desire to improve the educational performance of children in their states is a positive sign. I know it doesn't help that we have a 4-year administrative system or election cycle, and so one administration can start out excellently and then the next one comes and kind of, so that doesn't help with education planning and delivery. However, even within 4 years, a lot can be achieved. So we want to ensure our programs or our projects are sustained. What we look out for, at first when we started, it was almost like, as they used to say in that movie, Garfield would say, feed me, love me, never leave me. It was almost like we were providing everything, and it created some sort of, entitlement on the part of the recipients. But having learned over the years, we've realized that the states that have carried on and performed better are the ones who from the start demonstrated the willingness to collaborate in a structured and significant way. And so one of the key criteria for supporting any state is the state demonstrating what it wants. So for example, just informally, we're having conversations with Delta State. We've executed some projects there. And they reached out to us to say, oh, this project and that project, we want to repeat it. And this is what we're bringing to the table to co-fund it. So demonstrating what works, and then having a partner, a government partner that's willing to co-fund just makes the work easier. That way you're assured of sustainability. Again, like I said, because we are looking out to scale, it mustn't be us starting. We also go to those states wanting to see what's already working, that we can help the state scale and sustain. So it mustn't always be our initiative, but there must be alignment. Another thing on the side of the private sector is finding private sector partners who are doing similar things, maybe not exact, but complementary to what we're doing, and saying, let's pool resources together and do more. And those conversations are happening a lot more now than they were in the past. And so for us, sustainability would be beyond just, executing and hoping that government will carry it forward, building the structure from the design phase of how the project will be sustained when you're done. We just completed the Lenovate Flip pilot, and even before the pilot was over, we only trained in Plateau State, I think we trained less than 200 teachers. The state on its own has gone ahead to train over 1,000 teachers and are looking to draw on the Hope Edu intervention or project, the funds from there, to scale. They've asked us for the learning resources we used for the literacy program, and they want to mass produce it to distribute to more schools. They've built the capacity of more teachers because they saw the results. So for me, sustainability is easier when there is the will on the part of government to do the right thing, and then when there's evidence to show that what you're doing works.
Thank you so much for that, Tony. I think I was going to summarize it, but you've done that brilliantly. One, alignment, that willingness, and then two is that there's evidence that it works and it's easier to scale. Abdul, on your end, what would you say around sustainability? What key things are important to take into consideration when talking about sustainability for edtech interventions such as yours in public education system, especially at scale, beyond pilots now?
I also agree with communal is for the whole community responsible for the growth of education, and I really love the UBEC tagline that says education for all, responsibility of all. Stakeholders, within a community are the ones that are responsible for improving learning outcomes. So not only the government, even the community, the people from that same community can pool resources to deliver sustainability. But how would you start thinking about sustainability without evidence? So a project or a program that shows promise should be able to draw sustainability using the multiple channels, like she has said. Individuals funding, government bringing in some funds, private organizations bringing in some funding, and the local players, edtech innovators, also coming together to help keep these interventions running.
Much ado. Very, very interesting conversations on this episode. Thank you so much, Tonya, for your time as well. With that, we will draw the curtain on this episode and indeed our match series. Thank you so much for listening. As we conclude our match series, one message becomes clear. Nigeria does not lack innovative ideas or even partnerships. What often determines success is how well these efforts are coordinated, sustained, and aligned with national education priorities. If partnerships are designed thoughtfully, they can move beyond short-term projects and become powerful engines for systemic change in education. Remember, we would love to hear from you and get your feedback on the National EdTech Strategy framework. This framework has as one of its important pillars public-private partnership models. So we'd like your feedback. What models should be prioritized? What should be taken into consideration to truly ensure that we can have every learner everywhere learning? Share your thoughts with us in the comments on social media or through our direct message channels via SMS or WhatsApp at 0703 165 0809 or call 0706 402-0742. Remember, you can also send link to any of the WhatsApp number or as a text message to the other numbers, and you would receive the link to the National EdTech Strategy feedback platform where you can add your voice and shape the strategy. Also, you can continue this discussion on our WhatsApp and Telegram channels, EdTech Mondays Nigeria. And don't forget, past episodes are always available on Spotify, EdTech Mondays Nigeria, and YouTube, CC Hub Africa. I remain your host, Nisi Madu. Until next time, bye for now.
Tech Mondays, brought to you by Mastercard Foundation and CC Hub.